Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to this episode in Lessons in Savvy Living. And today I have a very, very special guest, someone I know very well, Coach AJ Austin. Before I say anything about her, I'm going to ask her the first question, which is, what are three things that people should know about you, Coach AJ?
Ooh. Well, first, y'all should know I'm going to be reading from my notes. That's a bonus. Um,
That's fine. We'll allow it.
yes, I didn't want to get off script. I was like, I need to be guided, and Sia has provided the guide. So we're being professional today, right, Sia?
Yes.
So the first thing is, well, I'll give you all three at once, and then I'll tell you why I told you this.
Okay.
What led me to be here with you today are actually my first three things. It was the death of my mom and a divorce, and the downsizing of my corporate career that happened in the same day.
Wow. In the same
Period.
day.
The same day.
Now, that is quite an intro, quite a story. And I've heard bits and pieces and elements, but what I wanted to do here on the podcast, Lessons in Savvy Living, which was designed to have real women tell real stories and share real lessons, I wanted to have a number of women on who can kind of share their experiences, their testimonies, their backgrounds, so that we can learn from them. And I want to know, Coach AJ, and I'll be calling you Coach AJ. Coach AJ, as you can see, Andrika J. Austin, master coach, life coach trainer. And look at this, also my coach. So what I wanted to know, Coach AJ, is take me back, because that is a lot to process at one time. So tell me your story. I want to know how you got from overcoming those obstacles to being the entrepreneur you are today.
Yeah. So I remember I had taken off work to actually go handle the divorce proceedings that day. And this was a corporate career that I held, where I was an enrollment counselor for people wanting to sign up for healthcare. And so I was the person that they would call and sit on the phone and complain to about their COPD and, what doctor has the best benefits and all that good stuff. And absenteeism was frowned upon at this job, but they, excused me. I had to whisper in my supervisor's ear, like, girl, I got to handle some business. I'll tell you about it when I get back. And she let me take that day off. And I was starting a business where I was running it on the weekend. So simultaneously, I had snuck and scheduled a television interview that day as well in the NBC studios. I was like, I would make the best of this day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was supposed to be on TV. Like, I'm going to go to the courthouse, sign on the dotted line, go hit NBC studios, and I'll be back on Monday morning. And little did I know, when I left divorce court after signing the papers and getting my name back, as Ike Turner said on What's Love Got to Do, my daddy blood is on that name. So I wanted that back. I make light of it now, but it was not an easy thing to do. Divorce is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And as this was coming to a close with that chapter of my life and I was moving forward, I remember pushing the down button on the elevator doors and my phone began to ring and I couldn't answer it because I was trying to play it cool. My now ex-husband was hanging out with some friends from the church that he had brought to the courthouse. Girl, it was a big scene, But I was like, I was cute that day because I was about to be on TV. So y'all can have this, but you can't see me break down and you don't even know who I'm about to answer this phone to talk to. So the doors are closing on the elevator. I get on it, I take a chance, reach in my purse, answer it. And it was my cousin calling to tell me that my mom had just passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And in that moment, I'm descending in the elevator and glad I took the chance to answer because, you don't really get a signal on the elevator. But when I got out of the courthouse that day, I just remember looking up at the sky and exhaling and saying, God, what would you have me to do? And so after family started calling and the job called and all of this news of just my world, I thought I was about to be on TV and be famous, but God had another plan. And so I ended up going home and cleaning out my mom's house. And shortly after that, I got the call from my job that my position would not be available when I came back. And I'm like, you would think I'm on bereavement. You guys would respect this time. We had 5 deaths in my family after my mom. So my aunt passed away a week later. it was just so much. And I'm the eldest child and the only girl.
Mm.
And all of that fell on me. And so my family, older cousins were calling, what are you going to do? What about our house? Because my mom's um, biggest goal in life was to have a house built from the ground up. And she did that. And it was a success because of her background. Small town country girl, Black, single mom from the hood, Douglasville, Georgia, big city for racism back then. Still kind of there today, but that's another episode, Sia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and being the quote unquote black sheep of her family, she felt, she had to lead the way. And so my mom was literally the example of what could be done as an entrepreneur in our family back in the early 90s. And so for her to work for herself, save up, get the credit right, and buy this house and have it built where she chose the colors of her countertops and the carpet that laid and what color they painted the wall. Like that was a big deal to own land as a Black woman in Douglasville, Georgia. And so her world of what she fought for, what she worked for, fell on me when she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from handling, the funeral arrangements, trying to figure out what bills need to be paid, what credit cards due, what medical bills are due. And it was $500,000 in medical expenses that had to be taken care of.
Whoa.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And I remember going to court because it had to be, I had to understand, like, why is it so much? What do I need to do? I'm the administrator for her estate. Her medical records were 500 pages. She had dealt with so much sickness. And she was only 47 years old.
Mm.
Yeah. And so the judge just had such compassion in his eyes. And he's like, Miss Austin, I understand because I lost my mother as well. So what we're going to do is forgive your debt.
What?
Girl, that ain't even it, girl. I can
Come
tell you
on.
some other stuff where Jesus just came on through, girl. So he
Stepped on
forgave the
in.
debt. I just remember being in like the paid parking lot in downtown Atlanta because that's where the courthouse was. And I'm shouting. And I was like, I need to hurry up because his meter going up, but I need to praise God. And so that was canceled. I got a lot of her debt forgiven because I'm like, she's gone and I'm giving you guys the courtesy of letting you know that. And most of her creditors were just happy that, I communicated because that's how I handle business. I'm a professional. I look young, but I know how to handle some business.
All right.
And I believe that's why she put my name on, the responsible things, here's how to handle the insurance, here's how to handle. And so she knew, that I would be prepared to handle this role. And I knew in my heart that God had trusted me with all of this, her death, handling her affairs, the divorce, ending that chapter of my life, the downsizing of my corporate career, and what would be next, which again is why I'm here with you today. So I'm excited to talk more about that too.
Okay, hold on. I need a moment. So what's striking to me is the visualization of you going down, descending in the elevator. And little did you know that your world was also going down as well.
Girl,
Okay. And you get the news. And then you went into the mode that most of us women go into. Got to take care of things because if we don't, who does? And so that's why I find your story so compelling because you had all of those things that happened at one time. How did you get from there to here now where you're coaching women like me to be life coaches? How did you make that transition? How did you do that?
Well, that's the other part of the story, CSO. All of that I did, like I said, was not easy, but now I can show up and talk about it with a smile on my face. And it's so funny because I recently hired a coach to help me with marketing and events and things like that. He said, AJ, how can you smile? Like, what, like, is this an act? How do you press through and still show your pearly whites when you've been through all this? And I'm like, oh, coach, that's nothing. I can tell you about my life before my mom passed and just growing up on hard times and how that made me who I am today. And my goal in life, where my mom had, build a house from the ground up, mine was to make it through high school, graduate, no pregnancies, no abortions, no drug addictions. And I was in the top 3% of my high school graduating class. And now I am literally the face for, we call them the Black people. because it was 80% white, 20% Black. And so we have people literally keeping track of life um, in the different segments of our class, if you will. We had about 300 students.
Okay.
And I was in the Smart Black Girl Club, if you will, and it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm representing for the African American community in my hometown. And so I say that because while my story is a lot deeper than we have time to cover today, it did give me the passion to serve and to help others. Because death, divorce, downsize was nothing. See, this is the little getter that I left out. I was also homeless during that time. And I was living in a prison that had been converted from a prison several decades ago to, they called it transitional housing for the working poor.
Mm.
So while I had a full-time job, good government job, if you will, I was still recouping from what being separated from my now ex-husband did, the financial crisis, now downsizing of the job. And all of a sudden, my mom passing away. And like you said, you can see me descending and you can see that downward pattern of my life. But what I didn't know was it was about to plateau.
Okay.
And so God had another plan, because shortly after all of this, no job, the death, the divorce, the mortgage company called for my mom's house and they said, you can't leave her home empty. Somebody got to live there.
Mm.
Now I have a middle brother who's serving 2 life sentences in prison.
Oh my.
So it wasn't going to be him. I had a baby brother who was 18 at the time, and he was away in Florida, young, baby of the family, spoiled. So it wasn't going to be him. So guess who had to move into this house that she could not afford? And I told them, I'm like, listen, I can't afford this. And they said, trust us. Go ahead and move in. And see, I remember stressing. I lost hair. That's why I wear this beautiful cut today, because my hair started breaking off.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't know what I was going to do, because here I was in this 3-bedroom, 2-story, 2-car garage home, and afraid for that mortgage to come. And I remember praying and I said, God, it will be so cool to know what it's like to not have to stress about mortgage for at least a year. Like, I wish I could just work and save up some money and pay off the mortgage for a year and not stress. Well, that turned into 10 years of
What do you,
no mortgage.
wait a minute. Hold on now. I need you to rewind that. What do you mean
Yeah.
10 years of no mortgage? Because I
10
need to hear this
years.
word.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So my Father in heaven, right? He
Okay.
heard my cry. He heard the conversation with me and the mortgage company. Like, y'all ain't got it. They trust us. Go ahead, Miss Austin. Because it was a clean transition. Now, so you got to listen to the fine print too, because I am now going from homeless to homeowner with a house that my mom had built from the ground up. She had only lived in it for 8 years. I was stressed because I was coming from a shelter, which was a loft that, was for one person. I had always wanted to be a homeowner in my 20s. And by the way, this was 12, 13 years ago now. And I didn't know this is how it would happen. So I didn't have the traditional the closing costs. I just had to go sign a piece of paper saying I assumed the loan.
Okay.
And little did I know, because I lived in this little small country town, Douglasville, Georgia. It was considered rural, just out in the sticks, if you will, in the woods, open land. I had an acre of land that I would be out there pushing a lawnmower,
Oh
sweating.
Lord.
And my 80-year-old neighbor would be watching me and telling her daughter, me and her daughter went to church together. And she would just watch me cut my grass. And so I just remember praying and asking God for a way to just not have to pay for a year. God, just give me a year of breathing room. And he turned it into 10. And what that looks like was me, again, having a conversation with the bill collectors, with the mortgage company, with telling them where I was. Same way I handled my mother's medical expenses. This is the real deal, Your Honor. Let me let you know what's going on. And so because they want to keep, I guess, the rural areas of Georgia populated, my mortgage company was the USDA. And I don't know what all that entails, because they handle a lot. I didn't know how it worked. Like, I would call them all the time just asking questions. I'm like, y'all, I wasn't at the closing table when my mom signed these papers. I don't know what it means to be a homeowner. What's escrow? Explain this.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so good at working with me. And then when I told them, I can't really afford this, they said, well, tell you what, we have this program called a moratorium. All you have to do is apply. It's based on your income. And there you go. We'll give you a 2-year break. 2 years turned into 10. I kept applying. I kept saying, y'all, I still ain't got
What?
it. I'm working on it, but I still ain't got it. I was honest. I was open. I let them know I am single. I'm handling my mother's affairs. I told y'all when I moved in here, I didn't have it. My, brothers, they're younger than me, so I'm looking out for them financially. Divorced, no job, and trying to build a business.
Hmm.
And they worked with me because I was honest, because I called them. We had conversations. And so it put me in a position to where I looked up 10 years later and I had not had a mortgage. And still, that ain't all. But I'm going to let you talk now because this your show. If you want to know more, I'm happy to share it.
I mean, so the thing that I just heard from there, other than the favor of God on your life,
Hallelujah.
was communication.
Communication.
Communication and conversation, because, and it's funny, and,
Conversation.
and now it's all clicking, because I know one of the things in your business is that you turn conversations. What's your line? Go ahead. What do you do?
I help coaches confidently convert conversations to clients' cash checks and credit cards.
So you know about these conversations. And okay,
Conversations.
so that's a good thing to keep in mind. And I think your story also is resonating because as we are filming this, it is the time of COVID-19. Hopefully
Yeah.
we're towards the end of it, Lord willing. We're of this COVID crisis. And there's so many people who are hurting financially. There's so many people
Yeah.
who are losing jobs. There's so many people who don't know which way to go, and they're just scared because they may not have been in this situation before. It's good to see someone who has been through a similar situation who said, guess what? There's a way out.
Absolutely. And this was during the economic downturn. And it just opened up my world of what asking. And that was a principle my mom instilled with me. She's like, if you got to call and make a payment arrangement somewhere, call them, put what you can on that bill, let them know where you stand. And it wasn't until I grew up and started to understand debt and payments and bills and responsibility financially, that would come into play.
So that's the second thing I heard. Listen to your mama.
Listen to your mama and be honest. Be
Be
honest about
honest.
where you are. In the coaching community, it's so common to fake it till you make it. And when I became a life coach, God told me that my connection to people like you who come to my 1-day life coach certification training will be my honesty. I call it the struggle to success. I'm sharing what works, what doesn't, and how to be delivered from that mindset of feeling like you have to put on a show in order for people to connect with you.
Absolutely. That is something. It's so funny because I think back to one of the earlier conversations we had. And I remember part of my lack of confidence was like, I don't have it all together. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's not what coaching is. It is helping other people discover the answers that they have. And that was very
Yeah.
freeing for me. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that I was able to learn that. And so I'm just taken aback by your story. So you somehow made it over, as they say in the gospel song, from homelessness, divorce, death, losing your job, to having a vision for your life, starting a business, and now talk about what your business is today.
Okay, so I gotta reapply chapstick before we get into part two. Okay,
Oh,
here
okay.
we go. You ready? So, see, the icing on the cake to wrap that story up, I remember when I did finally decide, I've been in this home for 10 years. This was my mother's dream. I wanted to be a homeowner. I didn't know it came with these responsibilities, but now I know I'm good. Y'all can have the house back. I'm finished. Because it still was too much. It was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I got to a place where I could pay the mortgage, where my business was bringing in the money, like I was seeing the numbers. I still was like, it's the space. It's the mentality of I'm here by myself. I got mad at my ex-husband because I'm like, you supposed to be out here cutting his grass and taking out the trash, So I'm in there having these arguments with just me and Jesus. And it was my time of healing though. So the
Right.
moments that we're in right now, that's nothing. I've been in quarantine for about 12, 13 years, girl,
Mm-hmm.
because I was at least 30, 35 minutes away from the major city of Atlanta, which is where my heart is. I love Atlanta, Georgia. And back in my hometown where I just could never see me coming to settle down. And here I was in this big old house, all this space, and it's just me. And it was so much that happened in transition. But when I finally decided, you know what, I've kept my mother's dream alive. I have honored her. I have handled her affairs. The dust settled. I'm out. I'm ready to
Mhm.
let this go. And that's what I did. I let it go. I communicated with the mortgage company, and I'm like, tell me how this works. How do I, what are the options? You guys have been so good to me. I don't want to just be trifling, just leave
Right.
the house like I'm
Mhm.
out. They like, where's she at with a mortgage? And so they worked with me. They took control of
Mhm.
everything. I let them handle the full process of whatever it took for me to get out of this house. And see, no lie, I said, God, you did 10 years when I asked for one. I have been honest and open. I have laid my prayers out on the altar. They're going to forgive this debt. This is a $200,000 house. I owed whatever 10 years of no mortgage was. So that was like 20,000 something. So all of that was backed up. So Corona people, if they telling y'all don't make a mortgage payment, just know they putting it on the back of that loan. They gonna
Mhm.
want their money. It don't go
Mhm.
away. You just might not have to pay it right now, but you're gonna pay it. And so they were still sending, the statements, and here's what your mortgage is, and here are the options to get it caught up, and all this good stuff. Um, and then all of a sudden, I didn't hear anything from them. I'm like, they're kind of quiet. Let me call and see what's happening. And I couldn't reach them for some reason. Just my calls would not go like to the same customer service people who helped me these last 10 years. I
Mhm.
don't know what happened to you, but I just know it was the hand of God, because one day I was in my office
Mhm.
working. I had a separate office I had rented in an office park. And in the mail, dear Miss Austin,
Mhm.
we reviewed your account and we've decided you owe us nothing.
Mm. Mm.
We
Mm.
have forgiven your 200 plus $1,000 in debt, and we thank you. And I
Two
just lost it.
hundred
Two
thousand. They
hundred thousand
and I know you got up and shouted right then and there.
at the mailbox, girl. I was so so glad my colleagues in the office is like, I can't get some. So I got to do a silent praise, with the little paper flapping. I wish I
Mhm.
would have. It's in my box somewhere. I said, oh, I'm keeping this. It might be in a book someday.
Mhm.
But God has really come through for me, Sia. And the time, the way I know it was God is because I got 10 years, not just a free mortgage, but I was able to sit with myself, to sit with my story, to
Mhm.
process what has happened.
Mhm.
The same thing that a lot of us are having to do right now with the Rona, because it's weird outside now. But we have to sit with what's happening, and we have to use what we have access to. So in my time of sitting and resting and hearing from God and talking to God and telling him what I needed and being obedient to what he told me to do and being honest about where I was and my struggles, he led me to write my first book. One book that started out with someone convinced me, AJ, you got to tell this story. You got to tell at least some of what you've been through. So I wrote my first book. It's called Secrets of a Socialprenista, and it
Mhm.
featured the top 8 mistakes that women entrepreneurs make that leave them broke, stuck, and struggling in their business. And I use this from what I was learning building this weekend business while I was going through homelessness, divorce, the downsizing of my job, but I was still building a business. Like you said, I had a vision for my life. And because my mom was an entrepreneur, my dad was an entrepreneur, both my grandparents, grandfathers were entrepreneurs. And then I just found out my great grandmother and great grandfather were entrepreneurs. It's kind of in my blood. So
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to work for myself. I was tired of being let go. I was tired of being downsized. I was tired of someone else making a decision for my destiny. And some kind of way, I got a hold of this thing called life coaching. And for a while, I was in school for psychology, but I took a break because all this going on in my life.
Right.
And so, in between time, some kind of way, I don't know if I got a letter in the mail. I don't know if I found this lady on Facebook, but I remember having a call with the lady about becoming a life coach. And I would have to travel to California, pay $5,000. And while I live in Atlanta, and it's the home of one of the biggest, it's the biggest airport in the world, I've
Mhm.
only flown once in my life, Steve. One time. That was
Oh.
because somebody bought me a ticket for Delta to fly to Virginia to do this internship program for the summer. And I was terrified on that plane. So I knew I would not be flying to California. And I didn't have $5,000. And I'm not paying mortgage. I'm going to pay you the $5,000 to become a coach. And I was glad that I did not take that trip, because a conversation with a business girlfriend a little bit later on revealed that there was a local company here in Atlanta training people in 2 days at a fraction of the cost. And
Mm-hmm.
I still didn't even have what they were charging. So she paid it for me. And when I was back in school and had a work study program going and I got my check, I paid her back. And so she rented a hotel. It was 2 days. So she rented a hotel for me. She set me up. We had an agreement because she went like the month before me, took the class. And she said, I promise when I get out, I'll tell you how it was. And when she got out, she would not tell me how it was. She's like, you just got to be there. I want you there so bad. I'm going to pay for you to go. So she paid for my training. She paid for my hotel. And I paid her back for the training when I got one of my last checks from my work study. And that's another story that would be really good to talk about, but we don't have time to talk about it today, so I'm going to skip that part. So I became a certified life coach in 2 days. And when I walked into the room to get certified and I saw this 65-year-old white hair man, physically fit, he says, you know, got the body of an athlete. And he really does say the exercises twice a day. I was like, okay, that's inspiring. But then after lunch on this first day, he opened up this table of books, of DVDs, of CDs that he had written and recorded. And I was really inspired. And so after that, I left, you know, with all his books and DVDs and CDs. He actually sold those into my life. And he's like, take what you want. And I was like, oh, you don't know, I'm an avid reader. You need a testimonial. You need a book review. I got you. But he asked for nothing in return. He sold his books into my life. It motivated me to write 14 more books. So now I'm a 15-time author, thanks to inspiration from what I saw. So not only did I have a vision, but I also had to pair up with other people who had visions and that could help me run and prepare my own vision, because the Bible says to write the vision and make it plain. And so that was my inspiration to become a coach, to become an author, and then to get the inspiration to now start working with women who, have their own struggle to success story of homelessness, divorce, abuse, trauma, you know, and things we have to get permission that it's okay to talk about and to share with the world in order to make a difference as a life coach.
So wait a minute, I heard another thing.
Right.
You need to align yourself with people who have similar purpose, who have a vision that aligns with your vision. So, okay, yeah, you're dropping some jewels here.
I got you, girl. I throw something out there. You got to be listening to catch it, right? And it
I'm listening.
You have to understand that everybody is not necessary. Just because they're there to get you started, they may not finish that same journey with you. So I have learned to acknowledge where God has placed people on my path strategically. You know, the mortgage broker that said, just trust us. Like, he knew what was coming. My girlfriend who's like, just go get certified. She knew what was coming. The coach who was like, here you go, take whatever you want. He knew what was coming. And he actually told me, he's like, AJ, you're going to do great things in this coaching community. And so what that led to down the road was a 4-year partnership with him, my first $1 million mentor. And he said, you know, he didn't even ask any questions. He's just like, our next training is on blah. And I'm like, wait a minute, I need to be trained in how to train coaches. He's like, no, you don't. You got it. And you got my manual. Go teach. And I made him let me attend one of the last trainings before I said yes, to see, you know, how this works. Because it's different when you're a life coach and you're coaching versus you're a life coach and now you're training other coaches. And so over the last 4 years, you know, I used his manual and what he taught me in class when I got certified, plus my own experience. I trained 120 life coaches around the world. They would fly into Atlanta, spend the 1 day with me. We got it down from 2 days to 1. So, you know, that was a long day. They usually were 14 hours in heels. But here we are 4 years later, 120 life coaches around the world certified. And now I love that I get to help educate people who are interested in becoming a life coach in a day like I did. I get to tell them what a life coach really is. I get to share the secrets behind being professionally trained, being skilled, being qualified, being certified, and giving yourself permission to become a life coach online now. We're online. It's in a day. And the beauty of the company now is that it's my own company. I can tell you more about that too. You want to know what?
Right. I mean, it's just, it's been such a journey from going down in that elevator
Mm-hmm.
to look where you are now.
Look at me now.
You've made the turn, and
Yep.
you've had some real powerful lessons. Listen to your mama. Surround yourself with good people. Communicate.
Yes.
Right? And I just, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Ooh, girl. The biggest lesson is not being afraid to learn the lesson. Like I said, we believe we have to fake it till we make it. It's okay to have faith. It's okay to take a leap, but it's also okay to be honest with yourself about where you are. Because if you're not honest, how can you get to where you want to be? And so you got to be willing to tell yourself, this is what I need help with. You got to be willing to be open and honest with people to say, this is what I need help with. And you got to let them know what their role is in it. So while I dedicated myself to the life coaching community, I dedicated myself to writing books. I dedicated myself to my destiny because I was tired of letting people make decisions for me, what I did with my life, what time I was supposed to be somewhere. If, a relationship or a friendship or a partnership would continue, I took back my power. And so the biggest lesson is not being afraid to link up with that strategy God has for you, to say yes, to obey, to actually do what he's telling you to do. Because as women, we're smart. We have intuition. We know when God is speaking to us. Whether or not we obey is another thing. But I didn't want to keep repeating those lessons because they say, if you don't get it the first time, he'll take you back through to
Mm-hmm.
make sure you get it. And I said, God, I'm not afraid. And so during my process of going from struggle to success, as now a master life coach trainer with those 120 certified life coaches around the world, you being one of them.
Yes. I'm number
I
114.
am okay. Right. We got our numbers, girl. We got our shirt. We
Yes.
got our paraphernalia,
Mm-hmm.
My biggest takeaway in my life, and that I would tell anyone, is don't be afraid to say yes. Whether that looks like you having to serve like I did for 4 years under mentorship, whether that looks like you have to be an apprentice and humble yourself, because yes, we're college educated, we're certified in certain things, but be able to be mentored, to be coached, to be poured into by someone who's been where you are. There's someone who knows something that you need to know. And if it takes you just sitting on the phone with a mortgage company, if it takes you attending a class that a friend told you about, if it takes you just saying yes to the next year of your life under leadership that can help guide you to where God has destined for you to be, you'll be surprised where you can be this time next year if you just say yes, if you just serve, if you just show up, and if you're just honest about that struggle to success process for you.
So honesty, that sounds like the biggest lesson, being honest with other people and also with yourself in terms
Yeah.
of your next steps. So
Yeah.
that's, oh, you bought the word. And we're taping this. This is a Sunday and you've brought forth the
Ah,
word.
yes, Lord.
Yes. Yes, Lord. So if somebody wanted to catch up with you, Coach AJ, where would they find you? What are your links? And I will actually have them also in the show notes below. But talk to us where we would find you, and for what reason.
I sure will. So first I want to say thank you because I had like a lesson plan for the interview today, but I appreciate really good conversation. And that's what today has been for me. So kudos to you, Sia, because you are gifted at this podcasting thing, girl. Like you can flow, you got the voice and the spirit for it. And I've watched some of your past episodes with our other coaches who too have been certified with you with the International Center for Life Coach Training. That's what my shirt says, y'all, by the way.
Yes.
That is my company that 4 years of humbling myself and serving and learning from the best has been birthed this year, established in 2020. My coach argues with me like, AJ, take that 2020 off, and I'm like, nope, this is mine. I work for this, I'm good with it. But because the last 7 years of being a certified life coach, the last 4 years of being a master life coach trainer led us to this year with our own coaching brand. So if you are that friend who everybody comes to, they trust you because you listen, you ask really good questions, I want to invite you to connect with me at thelifecoachquiz.com. to see if you may, like Sia and her fellow coaches she's interviewed on her podcast, be ready to become a certified life coach in one day. Find out what I know, because it's a lot up here, y'all. We didn't have time to dive into some coaching. But now that you know my story, I share more of my business in the training. Tell them, Sia, don't worry about that. I
That's
got y'all.
right. That's right.
I give you more with how to further connect with me on a deeper level, how to continue working together after you're certified. But that journey with me and the connection process all starts over at thelifecoachquiz.com. And when you get there, just enter your email address. It takes 60 seconds to take a quick quiz so I can see if you really are ready to be connected with me, to find out what life coaching and being certified and sharing your story is all about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying yes to being a guest on Lessons in Savvy Living. And until next time, everybody, that's it for this episode. Until next time, stay savvy. Bye.